It was Christmas Eve, and the house was filled with the scent of cookies and pine. My daughter Lily and I had just finished setting out milk and cookies for Santa. She was bubbling with excitement, her eyes wide as she clutched her stuffed reindeer. "Mama, do you think Santa's coming soon?" she asked, her face glowing with joy under the twinkling lights of the tree. I smiled, brushing a strand of hair from her face. "Any minute now," I said, glancing at the clock. It was nearly midnight. Suddenly we heard a soft thump on the roof, like something or someone had landed above us. Lily's eyes grew even wider. "Mama, Santa!" she squealed, rushing to the window. I laughed softly, my heart warming at her excitement. But as I went to follow her, something felt off. That sound wasn't light or gentle, like I imagined reindeer hooves would be. It was heavier, more deliberate. Lily pressed her face against the window, waiting for a glimpse of Santa's sleigh. But instead, her expression changed. Her excitement faded, and a look of confusion crossed her face. "Mama?" she called softly, turning to look at me. "That's not Santa." My stomach tightened. I rushed over to the window and peeked outside. My heart dropped. In the faint glow of the streetlight, I saw a shadowy figure moving around the side of the house, creeping toward our back door. My pulse quickened. "Lily, stay here," I whispered, trying to keep my voice steady. "Stay right by the tree and don't move, okay?" She nodded, her tiny face filled with confusion, but she could tell something was wrong. I crept toward the kitchen, where the back door led to the yard. The sound of footsteps crunched against the snow outside, getting closer. My mind raced. There was no one else who could be out here on Christmas Eve. Suddenly, the door handle rattled. I froze, my heart pounding in my ears. Someone was trying to get in. I glanced around for something, anything that could help. My phone was on the counter, but I knew calling the police would take too long. The handle rattled again, more forcefully this time. "Mom?" Lily's small voice broke through the tension. I turned to see her peeking around the corner, her eyes wide with fear. "Go upstairs," I whispered urgently. "Now." She hesitated, then ran toward the stairs as quietly as she could. I could hear her little feet on the steps, each one a reminder that I had to protect her, no matter what. Suddenly the door creaked open. I grabbed a kitchen knife from the drawer, my hands shaking as I stepped toward the door. The figure was halfway inside now, their silhouette looming in the darkness. I couldn't see their face, but I could feel the threat in the air. I stood there, gripping the knife, praying they wouldn't come any closer. The figure stopped, noticing me. There was a moment of stillness, a tense pause where neither of us moved. Then they took another step forward. "Mama, what's happening?" Lily's voice came from upstairs, breaking the silence. The figure turned their head slightly toward the stairs, as if they'd heard her. My heart sank. They knew she was there. "Get out," I hissed, holding the knife up higher, trying to seem braver than I felt. But the intruder didn't stop. They took another step inside, closer to me, closer to where my daughter was hiding. That's when I realized I wasn't going to be able to stop them on my own. I gripped the knife tighter, my hand trembling, but I knew I had to do something. The intruder's dark figure loomed in the doorway, inching closer. My mind raced, trying to figure out how to keep Lily safe, how to get us out of this situation alive. The man took another step forward, and I knew I had to act fast. "Please," I said, my voice shaking, "just leave. You don't want to do this." He didn't respond, just kept moving toward me. His face was still hidden in shadow, but I could see the glint of his eyes watching me, calculating. I had to be strong for Lily. Then, out of nowhere, I heard something. Not from him, but from outside. A car pulling up, tires crunching on the snow. The headlights swept across the living room, briefly illuminating the man in front of me. He turned to glance out the window, his movements slow, cautious. I didn't waste a second. In that brief moment of distraction, I bolted toward the stairs, rushing to where Lily was hiding. My heart pounded so loud I could barely hear anything else. I scooped her up and whispered, "Stay quiet, okay? We're gonna be fine." I didn't know if I was trying to convince her or myself. We crouched down in the hallway upstairs, hidden behind the banister. I listened, straining to hear what was happening downstairs. The door creaked open wider, and I heard the man's heavy footsteps on the wooden floor. But then, a second set of footsteps echoed through the house. "Police! Show yourself!" a voice barked. Relief flooded me. The car outside, it was the police. I had no idea how or why they were here, but I didn't care. I hugged Lily tightly as we listened. The intruder's footsteps stopped. There was a brief silence, and then the sound of movement, a scuffle. "Get down!" one of the officers shouted. A loud crash followed, and for a moment my heart stopped, fearing the worst. But then, footsteps, several pairs of them, thumped through the house, and I heard the unmistakable sound of handcuffs clicking. I peeked over the banister and saw two police officers wrestling the intruder to the ground, pinning him as they cuffed his hands behind his back. He didn't resist. He was caught. Lily, still shaking in my arms, whispered, "Is it over, Mama?" I kissed the top of her head, feeling the tension in my body finally ease. "Yes, sweetie, it's over." The officers led the man out of the house, and one of them stayed behind to check on us. "You're safe now," he said, his voice calm and reassuring. "We got a call from your neighbor. She saw a suspicious figure outside and thought it might be a break-in." I nodded, still in shock, but so grateful. "Thank you," I whispered. "Thank you so much." The officer smiled and looked at Lily. "You've got a brave mom, you know that?" Lily nodded, hugging me tighter. As the police wrapped up, I carried her back downstairs and locked every door and window in the house. We sat by the Christmas tree, the twinkling lights still glowing softly, but everything felt different. It wasn't the Christmas Eve I'd imagined, but we were safe. As I held Lily close, I realized that no matter how terrifying the night had been, we'd gotten through it together, and that was all that mattered. Later, as we sat on the couch, exhausted but safe, Lily whispered, "Mama, do you think Santa will still come?" I smiled, brushing her hair back. "Santa already came, sweetheart. He sent us help when we needed it most." And in that quiet moment, I felt a wave of peace wash over me. It wasn't the perfect Christmas, but we had each other, and that was all the magic I needed. The office was buzzing with excitement for the holiday party, especially the annual Secret Santa exchange. I had always been a bit more reserved, but I enjoyed the atmosphere and appreciated the chance to participate in something lighthearted for a change. I'd even picked out a thoughtful gift for my assigned person, a small luxury candle wrapped neatly in festive paper. I figured I'd get something simple in return, maybe a mug or a scarf. When my turn came, I walked up to the table and picked up the small, unwrapped box labeled with my name. I opened it and froze. Inside was a delicate silver bracelet with a charm in the shape of a tiny heart. It wasn't just any bracelet. It was identical to the one my mother had given me years ago, the one I had lost months back. My stomach churned. I forced a smile and thanked my Secret Santa, whoever they were, but my mind was spinning. How could someone possibly know about this bracelet? And where did they even get it? That night, I shrugged it off as an eerie coincidence. Maybe it wasn't the same bracelet. Maybe I was overthinking. But deep down, I knew it wasn't a coincidence. The next morning, I found another gift on my desk. This time, it was a small framed photo, a picture of my apartment building taken from the outside. My heart skipped a beat. How did they know where I lived? Was someone watching me? I glanced around the office, trying to see if anyone was watching my reaction, but everyone was going about their morning routine as usual. The knot in my stomach tightened, and I quietly slid the frame into my desk drawer. The following day, I found another package. This one was worse. Inside was a piece of paper with my bank statement, showing every purchase I'd made over the past month. I could barely breathe as I stared at the document. How had someone gotten access to this? And why were they doing this? I started avoiding people, keeping my head down at work and making excuses to leave early. But no matter how much I distanced myself, the gifts kept coming, each one more personal than the last. It wasn't just Secret Santa anymore. This felt like someone was toying with me, enjoying my discomfort. On the last day before the holiday break, I arrived at work to find a small envelope taped to my computer screen. My heart sank. I wanted to ignore it, but I couldn't. With shaky hands, I opened it. Inside was a single note written in neat, careful handwriting. "You're hard to buy for, but I know what you really want." My blood ran cold. I scanned the office, hoping to catch a glimpse of someone watching me, but no one seemed out of the ordinary. Everyone was laughing, chatting, exchanging gifts. It all felt so wrong, like I was stuck in a nightmare that only I was aware of. Just as I was about to crumble the note, my phone buzzed with a notification. I glanced down and saw a message from an unknown number. Meet me in the parking lot after work. You'll get your final gift. The air around me felt suddenly heavy, and I could feel the walls closing in. I stared at my phone, my mind racing. The message was clear. It was time to face whoever had been tormenting me. My instincts screamed to go straight to HR or maybe the police, but I hesitated. What if they dismissed it as a prank? Worse, what if this person knew how to cover their tracks? The office felt like a fishbowl, and I didn't know who was watching. All day, I couldn't focus. My eyes darted around the office, analyzing every conversation, every glance in my direction. No one seemed suspicious, but that didn't make me feel any safer. The hours dragged on, but finally the workday ended. Most people were eager to get home for the holiday break, gathering their things, chatting happily about their plans. Meanwhile, my palms were sweating, heart racing. I kept asking myself why I wasn't running. Why was I even considering meeting this person? But deep down, I knew I had to. I needed this to end, and running wouldn't stop them. I grabbed my coat and slowly made my way to the parking lot, my heart pounding harder with each step. The sun had just set, leaving a dull winter haze over the lot, which was now nearly empty. I scanned the area, looking for anything out of place. And then I saw him. My stomach dropped. It was Greg. Greg from IT, the guy who had fixed my computer 3 months ago. He was always friendly, a little too chatty maybe, but I'd never thought much of it. Now he stood by his car, hands in his pockets, with a smug smile on his face. I approached cautiously, trying to keep my distance. "Greg?" I called, my voice shaking. "Was it you?" He smiled wider. "Did you like the gifts? Thoughtful, right?" I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "Why? Why would you do this?" He shrugged casually, as if we were discussing something trivial. "You stood out to me. You're quiet. Keep to yourself. I figured you might need a little excitement." "Excitement?" I repeated, incredulous. "You've been stalking me, Greg. This is far from some harmless joke." His smile faltered slightly, but he didn't seem ashamed. "I know where you live, what you do every day. I know you better than you think." His voice was calm, too calm. "You don't understand now, but you will." A chill ran through me, and I realized I needed to get out of this situation, fast. I glanced around, hoping someone was still nearby. "This stops now. If you come near me again, I'm going to the police." Greg stepped forward slightly, his expression darkening. "You won't do that," he said, his voice low and threatening. "Because if you do, I'll make sure everyone knows your little secrets. I have everything." I felt cornered, but I couldn't let him see my fear. Summoning all the strength I had, I took a step back and spoke clearly. "This is over, Greg. I'm going to HR, and I'm reporting everything." Something in his eyes shifted, and for a moment, I thought he might do something drastic. But then, he just smirked again. "Go ahead," he muttered, his voice dripping with sarcasm. "But remember, I'll always be one step ahead. I have access to everything." He tapped his phone, as if to remind me of the power he thought he held. I turned and walked away, my legs shaking but determined not to let him see me crumble. The moment I was out of his sight, I practically ran back into the building, straight to HR. I told them everything. I showed them the messages, the gifts, the final note. To my relief, they took it seriously. By the next morning, Greg had been escorted out of the building, and the police were involved. It turned out that Greg had been manipulating my data at work, using his access to personal information to track my every move. He had hacked into my accounts, taken photos without my knowledge, and pieced together every detail of my life, all while hiding behind his IT position. The police assured me that he would face charges and that they'd ensure he couldn't contact me again. I was shaken, but also relieved. It was over. In the days that followed, the office buzzed with rumors, but no one really knew the full story. As I prepared for the holiday break, I felt a strange sense of closure. Greg had been stopped, and though the experience had been terrifying, I was finally free, or so I thought. On Christmas Eve, just as I was settling in at home, my phone buzzed. I glanced down at the screen and froze. A new message from an unknown number. "Merry Christmas, miss me yet?"